Okay, welcome back. Hope you all enjoyed your holiday weekend. Today, we are continuing our review of our newest RBT exam, where we're going through 10 practice questions and breaking them down together. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe. If you're looking for our proven study materials, please check out rbtexamreview.com. We've helped thousands of RBTs pass with our 3 practice exams, our task list study guide, and our combo pack, which is our best deal. We also offer our competency study guide as well. Questions, comments, please let me know. I'd love to help. When you do pass, let us know so we can include you in our Sunday shout out. Other than that, let's keep working hard, keep studying hard, and let's get to our questions. Okay, first question. Your BCBA requests that you, an RBT, assist them with treatment planning. You both pick a target and a goal, take baseline data, collect intervention data for a couple of weeks, and then graph the data. What is the next step in treatment planning? Okay, so if you have my study guide, you know we've got a specific set of steps that we go through as we're planning for treatment. And in this case, we're looking for some sort of skill acquisition goal, or maybe even a behavior, right? We have a target, we have a goal. We then take baseline, which means we are taking data before intervention starts. Where does that skill or where does that behavior currently sit without us intervening at all? This is a very important part of the process, and it tells us where we're going to begin. So once we do start intervening, we can try to determine, are we making a difference? Are we not? So after we take baseline, we collect intervention data for a couple of weeks. So we've started implementing our intervention, whether that to be teach a skill or to maybe reduce a behavior. Either way, we're going to collect data for a couple of weeks. That's where you come in as an RBT. RBTs, you're going to be implementing our treatment plan. So you're going to be taking baseline data. You'll be collecting intervention data. And then we're going to graph the data. Now, a lot of practices use digital technology to graph the data. Most BCBAs will graph their own data, but it is important as an RBT that you are familiar with graphs, line graphs, and how to graph data. But all that being said, what are we really trying to determine? What does the question want to know? The question wants to know, what is the next step? So after we have all this data, after we've graphed the data, what are we going to do with that data? Are we going to pick a new goal to work on now that you have data on the current goal? Well, before we pick a new goal, we need to finish up what we've started here, right? We don't just take data and then dive into something different, okay? We work on multiple things at once, but each one should be important and we should follow through. So just because we've graphed the data doesn't mean we're done with this particular skill or goal. So B, evaluate the current goal and make modifications if necessary. Yes, that's going to be the final step in our treatment planning. We look at our data, we evaluate it. If we're trying to increase a skill, maybe we ask ourselves, did that skill increase? Did it get better? If we're trying to decrease the behavior, maybe we ask ourselves, did we decrease the behavior? Either way, we're going to evaluate what we have, and if we need to modify it, we will. B is our final step in treatment planning. What about C, present the data to the client's parents? Possibly, possibly not. That's going to be up to the BCBA, not necessarily part of treatment planning, however. And then D, go back to collecting baseline data. Well, if we have a new intervention, maybe we do that, but we're not going to withdraw this intervention just yet. First, we're going to evaluate what we did collect on the current goal and then make the required modifications if necessary. Question 2, Ron and his family always host a giant Easter egg hunt on Easter Sunday. This year, the grand prize went to the kid who collected 52 Easter eggs. How did Ron measure the winner's Easter eggs? Pretty straightforward measurement question. This is how your measurement questions will most likely be presented to you. And so all you're going to try to determine is, well, what are we measuring and how do we measure it, right? And in this case, we are measuring Easter eggs, or specifically the winner's Easter egg. So if we look at our question, it says this year, the grand prize went to the kid who collected 52 Easter eggs. Well, pretty simple, right? Maybe the most simple form of measurement. What do we do to find out how many Easter eggs the kid collected? We counted. And a count is just what? It's just frequency. We just took frequency data on the amount of eggs the kid collected. Now, why isn't it rate? Rate is related to frequency, but remember, if we have rate, we also need a time component. We don't know how long it took the kid to collect 52 Easter eggs. If this would have said the grand prize went to the kid who collected 52 Easter eggs in an hour, that's rate. Because we have frequency with time. If you just have frequency / account, then you don't have rate, you only have frequency. Don't mix those two up. And of course, latency and IRT are not relevant here. Latency is going to be the time in between the SD and the start of a response. So if we're measuring latency, we might measure from the time the person said start to the time the kid started collecting eggs, but it's not what we're looking at. And then inter-response time would be time in between responses. In other words, time in between each egg the kid collected. But simply put, we are counting how many eggs the kid has. No time component. Ron is using frequency to measure the winner's Easter eggs. During life skills training, a client is taught how to order a chicken sandwich from Wendy's. A client orders a chicken sandwich from Wendy's 4 days in a row. The client then starts ordering hamburgers and french fries from Wendy's. What is the client demonstrating? So would this be a good thing or a bad thing if we taught the client how to order chicken sandwiches from Wendy's and then they start ordering hamburgers and french fries? Well, to me, that would be an awesome thing, right? That's what we're looking for. Can we teach a behavior and then have it start to generalize, right? Because not only can this client order chicken sandwiches, they're now capable of ordering other things like hamburgers and french fries, okay? This is not overgeneralization. This is exactly what you would do at a Wendy's. Very socially valid. This appears to be a good thing. But specifically, what is the client demonstrating? We just said they're generalizing, right? We taught them a skill, and then they went outside that learned skill or that learned environment and showed off a new skill. If we look at our answer choices, we don't necessarily have generalization, but we have stimulus and response generalization. So we're looking for a specific type of generalization. It's not regression, right? Regression is technically not an ABA term. It's used quite often, but this client's certainly not regressing. And then maintenance. Maintenance would be if the client could still order a chicken sandwich a month from now, but the client is actually demonstrating new skills, okay? They're starting to generalize. So the question becomes, when we look at stimulus generalization or response generalization, what is our trick? We ask ourselves, how many stimuli, how many responses? Well, in this case, the client is ordering from a person. So we have a single stimulus. The client is ordering chicken sandwiches. The client is ordering hamburgers. The client is ordering french fries. That is 3 different responses. So when you have multiple responses generalized for one stimulus, we have what? We have response generalization. Stimulus generalization is the other way. Stimulus generalization would be if we took our client and he ordered a chicken sandwich at Wendy's, he ordered a chicken sandwich at Chick-fil-A, and he ordered a chicken sandwich at McDonald's. Now we have a singular response, multiple stimuli. But in this case, we have one stimulus, 3 responses. Therefore, our client is demonstrating response generalization. Of the following differential reinforcement procedures, which one does not teach a replacement behavior? Differential reinforcement gives new people who are starting to study a lot of trouble. Remember, what are we doing with differential reinforcement? We're reinforcing a behavior or putting other behaviors on extinction, okay? Well, we need to be careful. The 3 main types we need to know as RBTs, or what you need to know as an RBT, DRA, DRI, DRO. Differential reinforcement of alternative, differential reinforcement of incompatible, differential reinforcement of other. What is the primary difference between DRO and then DRI and DRA? Well, with DRO, we are reinforcing in the absence of a behavior, right? We're picking a target behavior. Whenever that target behavior is not occurring, we're reinforcing. DRA, DRI, we're picking a target behavior. Whenever that behavior is occurring, we're reinforcing. We're teaching replacement behaviors with DRA and DRI. We are not with DRO. If we go back to our question, it asks specifically, of the following differential reinforcement procedures, which one does not teach a replacement behavior? Well, we just said DRO. You have to be very careful, okay? DRO is very effective for high rates of behavior, dangerous behaviors we just need to get rid of immediately, right? Because what we're doing is reinforcing whenever that behavior isn't occurring. We're just trying to reinforce anything else instead of that behavior. With DRA and DRI, we're now picking a specific behavior to reinforce this replacement behavior and putting the old behavior on extinction. Key difference between these 3, okay? DRI and DRA are very similar, right? DRO kind of lives in its own little category. So of the following, which one does not teach irreplaceable behavior? It's going to be C, DRO. Grant's boss sits at each of his employees' desks for an hour on Friday. He wants to see what each employee is accomplishing throughout the day. What type of assessment is Grant's boss conducting? All right. ABA is applicable not just to autism, not just to disabilities, but in the real world outside, right? Business or school or art, anything, really. It's human behavior. So you might see questions not necessarily related to the clients you typically might work with, like autism, right? Or maybe clients with disabilities. We just have to be prepared for that, okay? Just go in and apply what you know about ABA to each situation. That's why when you're in your day-to-day life, you should be trying to ABA yourself, meaning use terms on your own behavior. Start getting familiar with doing that, okay? It's going to make you a better RBT. It's going to make the test easier. In this case, we're asking what type of assessment is Grant's boss conducting? Be careful. We're not looking at Grant. We're looking at Grant's boss. It's important when we talk about behavior questions that we really identify who we're talking about. So what is Grant's boss doing? Grant's boss is sitting at each of his employees' desk. He wants to see what each employee is accomplishing throughout the day. Keyword C, right? Keyword sitting with his employees. So is he indirectly figuring these things out, or is he directly? Well, he's clearly directly, right? He wants to see what they're doing. He's sitting with them at their desk, et cetera, et cetera. So we can eliminate indirect assessment. We can also eliminate an interview assessment because an interview assessment is not a type of direct assessment. That leaves us with direct assessment and functional analysis. Now, be careful here, right? You might argue functional analysis is a direct assessment. You would be right. A functional analysis, though, is truly manipulating antecedents and consequences to determine functions. It's not what Grant's boss is doing. He's simply observing. And when you're simply observing, okay, taking very basic data, maybe just narrative data, you're just simply conducting a direct assessment. A functional analysis is way deeper. You're actually manipulating antecedents, manipulating consequences. The best way to determine a function, okay, but it's not necessarily what Grant's boss is doing. Grant's boss is simply directly assessing his employees by observing what they're doing. After a week of working with a client, the client's mom tells the RBT that she will pay the RBT $20 on the side for each target the client masters. If the RBT accepts this offer, what does it represent? First things first, is this okay? No, absolutely not. We should never be taking money like this on the side from a client, okay? Not only does the ethical code say you don't take gifts over $10, right? We certainly do not take incentives for trying to master clients' targets. And why is that? What's going to lead that? Well, what might that lead to? Well, you're now incentivized maybe to manipulate the data, to lie about what's mastered or not. Because if you're making $20 for each target mastered, we are now in a danger zone, okay? What exactly would the ethical code call this? Would the ethical code consider this a professional relationship? Well, absolutely not, right? A professional relationship in terms of an RBT and a stakeholder is you implement our treatment plan, you treat them with respect, you build rapport, we offer the best service possible, and that's it. Taking money on the side is definitely not professional. It's going to be B. It's going to be a conflict of interest. And why is that a conflict of interest? Well, now your interests are pulled in two directions, right? On one hand, we want what's best for the client. We want to take good data. We want to implement correctly. We want to be truthful. On the other hand, we're offered $20 to not do those things, right? There's a conflict of interest at play here. So in this scenario, if the RBT accepts the offer, they've entered into a conflict of interest, which is against the code. C, an ethical scenario. Is this ethical? Of course not. In the legal scenario, is this illegal? No, it's not illegal, right? In the truest sense of the word. You're not going to get arrested, okay? However, it is very unethical. If you do it, it is a conflict of interest. You are and will and should be reported to the board. So if the RBT accepts this offer, they are entering into a conflict of interest. Consider the prompt hierarchy. Which of the following prompts would be the least intrusive prompt to use with the client? Let's think about our prompt hierarchy, right? When we go most to least or least to most, we're either going up or down our hierarchy. So let's start with the most intrusive prompt. full physical, then partial physical, then modeling. Now, the ones after that, it depends on who you ask. It also depends on the client. But for the most part, the top three are going to be full physical, partial physical, modeling. Now, what about this graduated guidance? Because if we look at this, right, we're going to eliminate, because we're looking for least intrusive, we'll eliminate partial physical, we'll eliminate modeling, because gestural is going to fall under, on the hierarchy, partial and modeling, right? Gestural is going to be less intrusive than those two. However, what is graduated guidance? Graduating guidance is simply using physical prompts as necessary. So while it is true with graduated guidance, you are fading physical prompts extremely quickly and only using as necessary, you're still providing physical prompts. You're still providing a very intrusive prompt, okay, especially when you compare just a simple gestural prompt. That's why graduated guidance is not our answer. Partial physical and modeling are just more intrusive than gestural, full stop. Graduated guidance, however, is a type of physical prompting, right? You're fading quickly again. You're still providing physical prompts. So of these, if we consider the prompt hierarchy, which of the following will be the least intrusive prompt used with a client? It's going to be D, gestural. You completed a paper for class the night before it was due. The paper was 3,000 words, and it took you 5 hours to complete. At what rate did you write the paper? Okay. Let's go back. What is rate? Rate is frequency over time. What's our frequency? Well, our frequency is going to be 3,000. We have 3,000 words. What's our time? Our time is 5 hours. So we divide 3,000 over 5, and what do you get? You get 600. So you're going to get 600 words per hour. All you have to do is find that in your answer choices. We have 3,000 words per hour, which we know is not true because we wrote 3,000 words in 5 hours. We have 600 words per hour. That's what we got when we had frequency over time. Then we have 3,000 words. That's just a frequency. 600 words. That's just a frequency. Remember, don't mix up frequency and rate. They're not interchangeable. Okay? They're two different things. Very important to remember. So once again, how do we find rate? We take frequency, which is 3,000, divided by time, which is 5. We're going to get 600 words per hour. If your target behavior was hair twirling, what will be the best definition to use in a behavior plan? All right, what goes into a good behavior definition? We want to be measurable. We want to be objective. So we want to be descriptive, right? I want to describe it. So if somebody walks in and says, hey, what are you measuring? And I read my definition, they know exactly what I'm measuring. So we want observable, we want measurable. If we can, we include function. If we can include antecedents, consequences. The more, the better, right? Behavioral definitions, the more, the merrier. So we're looking for the best definition for hair twirling. A, the client twirls their hair several times per class. Does that really tell us what the behavior looks like? No. Several times per class. Does that tell us how often it happens? Not really. What is several, right? Several to me might mean something different compared to several to you, right? A is not good whatsoever. B, the client twirls their hair on average 10 times per class for attention. It's better, right? We have a function, we have an average amount of data. However, the client twirls their hair still isn't specific. Now you might say, well, we know what hair twirling looks like, but what if my opinion of hair twirling looks different than yours? That's a problem. That's why we have to write this explicitly. So no matter who sees it, okay, we're all measuring the same thing. So let's try to get more specific here. The client will wrap their hair around their pointing finger on average 10 times per class for attention. It's pretty good, right? We have function, we have on an average amount of times it happens, and then the client will wrap their hair around their pointer finger, which is much more descriptive than client twirling their hair. Now we know, okay, when we see them wrapping their hair around their pointer finger, that's what we're talking about. Can you always go more specific? Absolutely, right? But we're looking for the best answer. So far, C is our best answer. And then D, the client will wrap their hair around their pointer finger for attention. Okay, pretty good. But why is C better? Because it just includes more, right? We now also know how often this happens, on average 10 times per class. Okay, the more the better. This one's descriptive, has a function, has some data. C is easily the best option. And then finally, what are the ethical concerns when using punishment? As we know, we really try to use reinforcement as much as possible. Reinforcement is better because it encourages the right behavior, it teaches the right behavior, and we're not focused on the behavior we're trying to change. So when we're using punishment, which we do use, don't let anyone say we don't use it in ABA, okay? Because it is used. However, there are some ethical concerns. What are those ethical concerns? A, punishment is not permanent. If punishment stops, the behavior will come back. Yes. If we stop punishment, the behavior is going to come back, okay? Now, this is why we use reinforcement with punishment, right? Or we use differential reinforcement along with punishment, okay? Because we're trying at some point to teach a replacement behavior. If we're decreasing something, we need to add something in, which brings us to B, punishment does not teach new behaviors. That's the problem, really. Since we're not teaching new behaviors with punishment, if we don't do anything else except punishment and the punishment stops, the behavior is coming back. So A and B are both big ethical concerns. And then C, punishment can increase the wrong behaviors. If it's increasing, is that punishment? No, it's reinforcement. Okay, so C is wrong. Our answer is going to be both A and B. Ethical concerns, punishment is not permanent, and punishment does not teach new behaviors. Okay, thanks for watching. Please check out rbtexamreview.com for 3 practice exams, our task list study guide, and our RBT combo pack. It's our best deal. Questions, comments, please let me know. Work hard, study hard. See you soon.